Welcome to the Mr. Verzace podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Verzace himself, Rick Reeno, and joining me today are two of the most exciting fighters in the sport, WBA and WBC light heavyweight champion David Benavidez and two-time world title challenger Anthony Yarde. And when you got two guys in front of you named the Mexican Monster and the Beast, you don't want to run into them in a dark alley. And these guys are going to collide this Saturday night in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, live on pay-per-view, exclusively on DAZN. David, I'm going to turn it over to you first. Looking back, when did you first become aware of Anthony Yarde? When did you first hear his name or remember a fight that you saw?
So, me, I'm a fan of boxing. I watch all the up-and-coming boxers. At the time when he was coming up, I was quite young. I had seen him before he had got that fight with Kovalev, so it was, a hot new thing coming out of the UK. Devastating puncher, good punching power, knocking everybody out. And, I had my eye on him. And then, that's how I kind of, before the fight with Kovalev, when I seen him, on the map. And, that was my first time probably. When you fight Kovalev,
2019.
2000, yeah. So it was 2018. I had first seen him 2017, 2018.
What were your early impressions?
Yeah, I knew he was a good fighter. I knew. It's funny because when I look at fighters, I'm basically scouting them for myself. I'm I thought, and my thought was my prediction came true that he was gonna be a potential opponent for the future. But in my head, I thought he was a good opponent, great power. He's knocking everybody out, and here we are today.
So even going that far back, you were like, one day I might face this guy in the ring.
That's, with me, I like to keep my eyes on the potential opponents in the future. Even that's how I've been since I was a little kid. I think I was probably maybe 19, 18, somewhere. I was fairly young, so I was kind of scouting out for the future.
And Anthony, you had your foot in the door first. When do you first remember hearing about this young guy?
Do you know what it was? I think he was already world champion. He's a highlight fighter. Yeah. Good combination of punches, wearing down his opponents. I can't tell you the specific fight it was, but again, there's a lot of highlights and noise around David. So I was one of the people. I'm a fan of boxing. So I remember the knockout where he hit the guy, I think 24 times.
Yeah, that's a big highlight for David. That fight. That's with Porky Medina.
Yeah.
I don't even know the guy's name, but it was a good highlight, And then I've seen some fights since, so I put his name on YouTube, started watching it. So yeah, man. Outside of me and him getting in the ring and scrapping, I'm a fan of his work.
Now, this is your third bite of the apple, so to speak, as far as world title fights, and it's a testament to your abilities. Because some guys, they get one bite. If they're lucky, they're able to rebuild themselves to a second bite. Looking back, the Sergey Kovalev fight, I remember watching that fight. It was in Russia, and you had Kovalev in serious trouble, where I remember as a fan watching it, I'm saying to myself, he's got him. He's one punch away. This is about to get waved off. You have obviously a lot more experience now. Looking back then, what do you think went wrong in that fight?
I think the bell rang. That was literally it. When the bell rang, I looked up at the sky and I said, F. I was like, I'm gassed, because being inexperienced, going into that fight, at the time, Kovalev was the man, and I said to myself, at some point in time in that fight, I said, I'm going to land. I said, when I hurt him, I'm going to go for it, because I'm in Russia. Everyone knows the game of boxing.
Yeah.
I'm in Russia, in his backyard. I'm not in no popular place either. I'm in Chelyabinsk, where he grew up. Everything was surrounded around him. Yes, I was a prospect, but my dream was to be world champion, and my dream is to be world champion. So at the time, I'm young, I'm fresh, 18 fights, I'm a novice. Everyone's telling me, you're crazy. What are you doing going to fight this guy? Wait. I was like, nah, it's opportunity. So it's just my mentality.
And then you obviously rebuilt yourself, worked your way up to another world title shot, got into the ring with probably one of the most dangerous punchers in the sport, in Artur Beterbiev, who at that point had knocked out every single opponent that he'd faced. And you gave him one hell of a run for his money. I mean, you left such a lasting impression on him that I'll be honest with you, I've spoken to Arthur because I could speak several of the Eastern European languages, so I've spoken to him about this fight. And I remember when the fight, first got announced, he was looking at David as a potential opponent for next year, and he's like, what are you guys doing? Anthony Yarde's too dangerous to put him in. He's like, and I think he was actually, when I last spoke to him, favoring you in the fight. And you rocked his knees quite a few times in that contest where, people had him really as a heavy favorite. What do you think some of the things you failed to do in that contest where you came up short? Benavidez
is a very, very good fighter, very calculated. He's very unorthodox as well. So he does things that, again, you can't really train for. If you look at his footwork and how he throws punches, he seems like he's being messy, when he's throwing all these rapid punches. And yes, he's powerful. He leaps in with shots. But again, it's all part of the experience, I had 12 amateur fights, and it's been a ringing bell of my whole career. The fact of how this guy with hardly any experience, made it to this level, and then again, he gets a world title fight, he gives it his all. He's very close. Because with Benavidez, I think 2 of the judges had me ahead at the time, before he caught me or whatever. And again, that's just experience. So if I knew what I knew now, I would have taken my time a bit more.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I remember your camp had complained that he may have clipped you a few times in the back of the head. Just the name of the game?
Name of the game, and it's a fight at the end of the day. The ref's got a job to do. My job is not to cry and complain. My job is to try and win the fight. So, I think it was when he hurt me, I think the next few punches were like over the top of the head. But that's past now, man. I've learned from it. That's all I can say.
So now you're third time you're getting in position for a world title shot. What's different about this title shot and this Anthony Yarde compared to the first 2 times?
I guess we have to just wait and see. I'm not one of them people. I'm a real life character.
Yeah.
I'm not a character you see in the book. Again, I respect this guy highly. I watched him when he was at super middleweight, and he was heavily avoided. His resume is exceptional, and all I want to do is go in there and be the best version of myself now, and that's a better version than before.
When he first, you heard he was moving up to 175, did you immediately say to yourself, I may end up facing this guy?
100%, because as I said, at super middleweight, he was bossing the division. He rose the ranks very quickly, heavily avoided, and he's big. You can see that he was, tapering himself down to make super middleweight, and because of his frame and stuff, he could go cruiserweight just like myself. I'm a bit shorter than him, but I'm broad. Like I'm a thick person, but he's got the height. When he was younger, he was on the chubby side, so you can see he's thick boned, and I think he can go up to cruiserweight as well.
And David, for you, this is your third fight in the weight class. Your first one was against former world champion Oleksandr Usyk. And I know at the time a lot of people said, especially critics, were like, this isn't like the textbook Benavidez performance that we're used to. And when you were at 68, I'm sure you heard the haters saying things like, he's a weight bully, he's too big for these guys. And then when you went to 75, they were sort of like, oh, now he couldn't put this guy away who, kind of looked a little bit on the slide at that point when you faced him. Do you think it was just a case of filling into the weight? It was your first fight?
No, not at all. That fight, I've said it a lot in recent interviews. That was probably one of the worst camps. Not camps, but I had gone through so much injuries leading up to the fight. I had a cut in my eye 3 weeks before. I had a torn ligament a couple weeks before the fight. I had a messed up left knuckle in the fight, too. I remember doing mitts in the back room, and both of them started hurting. I'm like, oh, I'm in for a long night. So, even that being said, I was still hurting the guy with 2 damaged hands. But, once you have 2 major injuries like that, there's only so much you could do. My hands were hurting so much. But, I went in there, and that's the thing about boxing, too. You have to fight. You have to fight. You have to find other ways to win. Even though when you have two of your weapons are messed up, you still have to find the ways to win. So that fight, I learned more that I have a lot of heart. Even with 2 injuries, and then also, it was my first fight at 175. Now when I went into the fight with Morrell, with both those fighters, I was hurting both of those fighters. In various rounds of those fights. It's just that, these guys are bigger. They could take a punch better. So what we did this time is, we went back to the basics, using footwork, setting shots up, using more of the jab. And, I feel like that's what's going to open more doors for me, from this fight and now into the future. At the end of the day, what wins is the basics, going back to the basics, jabs, combinations, and using the basic things in boxing. That opens more doors instead of just trying to walk guys down.
Well, I remember when you faced Morrell, it looked like a totally different Benavidez. I was like, oh, this is the guy I know. Because going in, there was a lot of debate in that fight because Morrell was highly regarded as well. They talked about you guys always fighting at 68. It happened at 75. And it was one hell of a fight.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was a great fight, great performance on my part. But now, going forward in my career, I'm not just stuck about getting a knockout. You know what I mean? You're not going to be able to knock everybody out. But what I will do is I'm always trying to look to dominate in every single fight, So that's my plan from now on. I know how to do it. I know how to use – I have great abilities of boxing. I have great defensive abilities. I could use the ring. I could brawl. I could do everything. You guys have seen that my IQ, I have the second best, the second most accurate puncher in all of boxing. So I know how to do all this stuff. So I'm not really too, just thinking about a knockout. Me in my fights, I want to dominate. And then if dominating sometimes better than just going in there looking for the knockout, because when you dominate a fighter from round 1 to round 12, that means that you've done everything right. You know what I mean? So if the knockout comes, it comes. You know what I mean? But I'm not really too worried about the knockout no more.
Now, obviously, Anthony's faced Kovalev. He's faced Beterbiev. What separates you, makes you different from those two guys?
I think I've already showed that I'm on that level. I've been multiple world champion. I got world champion at light heavyweight already. I got the interim title at light heavyweight. So I'm on the same caliber as those guys. You know what I mean? I'm the second highest accurate puncher in all of boxing. So I've shown that I'm on that caliber of boxing, but I could tell him something, but I'd rather show him instead of telling him. You know what I mean? I don't want to just say something. I'd rather go in there and show a fighter exactly who I am.
And you, Anthony, as a fan of boxing, what do you see different about David in comparison to Beterbiev and Kovalev?
Different humans. Complete different people. I will only know once I get in the ring with him. That's literally it. He could get in there. He could get excited, start trading with me. I could learn first. He could learn. It's the beautiful art. It's a beautiful sport that we're in, and I feel like that's what makes this fight so exciting. He gets greedy. He likes a knockout win. As much as he's saying he wants to dominate every round, if he hurts somebody, he wants a knockout. And I'm the same. I feel like it's just the nature of how both of us fight, and I feel like that's what makes this fight a blockbuster fight. It makes it's so intriguing.
And then also the thing about this fight is, you got Anthony Yarde wanting to become world champion for the first time. You got David Benavidez wanting to get to the next level. I want to become unified world champion. I want to be the face of boxing. I've trained extremely hard. Looking at him, I know he's trained extremely hard. We haven't been doing too much talking, but best believe in the gym, we've been putting in that work every single day. So this is what makes this fight interesting. He wants to become world champion. I want to get to the next level. This is the hardest I've trained for any fight. And I've given Anthony Yarde the credit he deserves, and I've given him the importance he deserves. I've watched all his fights, and even now I'm still watching all his fights because I know he's coming in ready. I'm coming in ready as well, and this is going to be the fight tonight. We're definitely going to steal the show November 22nd.
Do you think there's any way, Anthony, this fight won't be a tear-up? It seems like it's a guaranteed tear-up the way you two guys fight.
I feel like it's impossible. I feel like stylistically, it wouldn't even make sense. He's going to, utilize his different abilities. I'm sure if I hurt him, he's going to want to box for a bit and then maybe come back and, test the waters. You know, I might start boxing. Styles make fights. I might be all wrong for David, stylistically. It's just boxing. So, but what I do know is that how we both fight and our mentalities, I feel like it's inevitable it's going to be a good fight.
You know, now that I'm reflecting back on a lot of your past opponents, I can't think of a fight that you've had in the past, you might correct me, where I thought going in, this is going to be a war. Usually I think a lot of your opponents, I'm like, oh, this guy's going to try to box David. He's going to have to use his pressure, break this guy down. But I think this is the first fight going in where I said, this might be an absolute war from round one.
Yeah, and this is what intrigues me as well. This is what makes me excited. You know, these are the type of fights I want. I've never been in a boring fight. He's never been in a boring fight. Everybody knows that. The world knows that. That's why they're so interested in this fight. That's why they can't wait to see this fight. Because they know we don't need to do no talking. We'll do the talking in the ring.
Now, I know for much of your time, especially when you became a world champion at 68, when you were climbing up, making a real name for yourself, everyone started talking about, you want to see Benavidez and Canelo. Do you think at this point that ship has sailed? You've moved past it?
I don't care about Canelo. I don't care about nobody. I don't care about Bivol, Beterbiev. The only person I care about is Anthony Yarde, and we're going to give the fans what they want to see this Saturday.
And I know on your end, you had something similar. For years, everyone was just talking Joshua Buatsi. No matter who you were fighting guys like Kovalev and Beterbiev, and everyone's like, we want to see Joshua Buatsi. For a long time, that fight couldn't come together because you guys were on different networks, different promoters. Now you're with the same promoter, the same network. Is that even a thought in your head of a domestic fight, or you're just like, that ship has sailed, I'm
flabbergasted how we can mention that fight when I got this man in front of me. The levels are completely different. He's a world champion. He's been a world champion. He's dominated a weight class before light heavyweight. Name is quadruple. I think with Joshua Buatsi, I think he's been frustrated his whole career because he was an Olympian. I started making noise in the professional ranks. People started knowing my name or whatever. So his promoter at the time was excellent. Attached his name to mine. Ever since then, it's been an ongoing thing. These two are going to fight. His career, it wasn't really that exciting. But then the excitement is linking his name to mine. But I honestly have it's like it don't even exist. I've got this man in front of me. Like, respectfully, bigger name, better fighter, world champion. There's two belts there that I keep staring at, like it's cake. Because I want them. You know what I'm saying? I'm greedy, I love food, he loves food. We're both greedy. And maybe we're greedy for entertainment and boxing as well. But he don't care about other fighters. At least with the names you mentioned with him, they're big names.
Yeah.
They're world champions, they're unified, they're undisputed. He's my only focus.
But what you say is actually true.
Yeah.
Do you think it was a case of resentment that his name was attached to you? Because what you're saying is correct. Buatsi was a decorated Olympian, came in, you had a couple of fights in the amateurs, and you had a much higher profile.
Yeah, I think I had a mentality when I started boxing. I started boxing late. I started boxing when I was just before I turned 19, had my first ever fight just before I turned 20. But I had a mentality of this Mike Tyson thing. Mike Tyson, the reason I even knew anything about boxing is because of Mike Tyson. All I saw was a small guy knocking out big guys. I didn't know about weight classes. I don't know if this guy was a middleweight, heavyweight, I don't know. I just saw a small guy knocking out these big guys, so I saw it as entertainment. So when I got into boxing, I said, it's late. Everyone was telling me it's too late. What are you doing? How are you going to become world champion? How are you going to even do anything in boxing? You're 18, 19 years old. But now we're here. Now we're actually here again.
Was there a particular fight, David, for you in your career where you're like, now I'm on the lips of all the experts? Like a certain victory that you could think of where you're like, now I've cracked over that line where they're taking me seriously?
Yeah, probably after the Caleb Plant fight. And then it was reassured after I beat Demetrius Andre. And then just every fight, that's why I've been trying to get the biggest fights. From Caleb Plant to Demetrius Andre to, David Morrell. And I'm just trying to get the biggest names out there because the end of the day, you know, people are always going to say something about me. It doesn't matter who you beat. They're always going to say, oh, this and that. You know, they want to discredit you. So for me to combat the discredit, I'm going to go in there and beat all the biggest fighters possible, all the best fighters that are in whatever division it's in.
Are you a guy that you would say that in this division you're focused on becoming undisputed just to get that notch on your belt, or you're just more focused on, let me get the best opponents and whatever comes, if there's a title, there's a title?
Yeah, basically, because, you know, nothing is guaranteed, as we've seen. You know, I've been number one, you know, 168 to fight for all the belts. That never happened. I was in line to fight Dimitri Bivol. That didn't happen. So I'm taking it one fight at a time, and whatever best fighter there is to pick from all the bunch that I could fight, and I could defend my titles, and I could win extra titles, that's what I'm doing.
And I'm going to, at this point of the pod, like transition for a bit to a segment that I call News and Notes, where I just kind of go over some big topics that's going on in the sport and get your expert opinions of you and Anthony. The first one is Jake Paul deciding to fight former two-time heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua. What went through your head when you first heard that fight's taking place?
Yeah, I thought that was crazy, to be honest with you. I don't know how he goes from Gervonta Davis to Anthony Joshua. You know what I mean? I thought that fight with Gervonta Davis was dangerous for him. I thought it was very dangerous for him. And then now he's going up against, you know, probably arguably one of the greatest heavyweight champions of all time. And he's a hitter. You know what I mean? He's not just a boxer, he's a hitter. So, I mean, respect to Jake Paul, but I don't know who's advising him to take that fight. That's a dangerous, dangerous fight. You know what I mean? And we kind of all know what's going to happen. You know what I mean? But respectfully, you know, I know I've met Jake Paul a couple times, and he was really cool with me. You know, he's let me train in his gym. So I don't want to say what's going to happen, but, you know what I mean? Hopefully he trains well and gets ready for that fight, because, you know, Anthony Joshua is coming to knock him out.
I mean, it seems like you said, an extremely dangerous decision based on the last novice fighter Anthony Joshua faced, Francis Ngannou, who is regarded for having a very good chin, and he was completely knocked unconscious in 2 rounds and needed oxygen on the floor.
Yeah.
And he's a lot bigger of a guy than Jake Paul.
So then that's the thing, too. That's the thing that I was thinking about. I mean, Jake Paul, he usually fights at 200. You know what I mean? I doubt Joshua is going to come down in weight. So what, they're going to fight at 230, 220 was the heavyweight, you know what I mean? So that's a dangerous fight for him. But what I will say about that is that if I could see Jake Paul going in there fighting against Anthony Joshua, then shit, I might as well go heavyweight myself too. That's nothing that motivates me to go to heavyweight. So why would I be scared to go to cruiserweight, go to heavyweight? You know what I mean? So I take that, and I take that as motivation, you know, because some balls going in there taking on that fight with Anthony Joshua.
And Anthony, that's one of your countrymen. I know the UK went crazy when they first heard that fight was finalized for next month. What went through your head?
I found out when I got here. So I don't really hear. I'll be honest with you. My only focus is this man in front of me. Yes, it's entertaining news for boxing. As David just said, it's dangerous for Jake Paul. I feel like until they get in the ring, I don't know if it's going to happen. Because we all know Jake Paul to be a master at, you know, publicity. You know, he was going to fight Gervonta Davis. I don't know what happened there, what fell through or whatever. But it's a very dangerous fight. Not for his record or anything like that. I don't think he cares about that, but it's a dangerous fight in terms of his health.
Do you think this is sort of like the future of things to come? There's going to be a lot more of these crossover fights, because you have the Misfits events taking place all the time in the UK, and some of those guys really get hurt on those Misfits cards.
Exactly. And I think maybe at different weight classes, people wouldn't, like, it wouldn't be so dangerous, you know. Yes, even the Tank fight, I said the same thing. I said, Tank can hit, Tank can hurt this guy. But then AJ, like, he's a heavyweight, that also hurts guys. So it's, I don't know. For me, it's a bit silly. I think what's convincing him to do things like that is the money. I'm hearing that, you know, he's receiving a lot of money for this fight, but how much money is your health?
And we recently had a huge event, Terence Crawford upsetting Canelo Alvarez, became undisputed at 168, what was funny is in the immediate aftermath, people were saying, can David get down to 168 to fight Terence Crawford? And you said, maybe if I cut a leg off, I'll get back to 168. Obviously, you and Crawford in there, he's never going to fight someone as big as you. If you were putting your matchmaker's hat on, where does he go from here?
To be honest with you, I would like to see him go down to 154, fight Boots. That's a great fight. Fight Virgil Ortiz. Maybe even the Charlo, the one that was champion at 154.
And Jermell.
Jermell. I mean, there's a lot. If I put my matchmaking hat on, there's a lot of good fights, but the money wouldn't be there. It wouldn't be nowhere near the same as Canelo fight. So I think once he's made that money, and then these other guys, they're all good fighters too. They're gonna be like, you know what I mean? That's potentially a more dangerous fight than the Canelo fight, because these guys are gonna come ready. They're gonna come hungry. Why would he fight for anything less than what, 15, 20 million? And I don't think they'll get 20 million for each of those guys. But I would like to see him go down to 154. I mean, I heard that he was going to fight Johnny back at 160. That's a dangerous fight too. You know what I mean? And then we wouldn't know what he's getting for that fight. But all those fights are dangerous. And in my opinion, I don't think they're going to pay him 20 mil for any of those fights.
Out of those potential opponents where you got Boots, Janibek, who do you think could give him the best run for his money?
I think Johnny Beck, only because he's heavier. He fights at 160. He's a champion. He's a really good fighter. But I think the most entertaining fight, probably not. Well, yeah, I think the most entertaining, probably the hardest fight will be him and Boots, because we've seen Boots. He's an exceptional talent. He has speed. He has power. So I mean, that's the fight. I think that'd be the hardest fight, to be honest with you. But that's what I see in my head. You know, I mean, Terence Crawford could go in there and make it look easy, just like I did the Canelo fight. So that's the thing about Crawford. You know, sometimes you think that they're hard fights, and Crawford goes in there and makes them look easy.
Were you shocked at how easy it was? Because initially when that fight was announced, everyone was like, oh, this is a mismatch. How is he going to fight a welterweight when he should be fighting Benavidez or one of these guys?
I thought it was a story, two complete different stories of two completely different fighters at their stage of their career. Crawford looked like somebody who was training extremely hard every single day, trying to make his biggest dreams come true, and he was going to do that with hard work. He didn't skip no days. Canelo, on the other hand, you know, you've seen him wearing the easy money shirt. In my opinion, I think Canelo didn't really train that hard. I think that he thought he was going to end up just catching him with one big shot and knock him out, because in the fight he was only throwing like 10 punches per round. You know what I mean? He didn't really push the gas even towards the middle of the fight. It's funny because he started slow and he ended slow. Like, how does that happen from one of the greatest boxers of all time, supposedly? You know what I mean? So I felt like Crawford, and also you can't take it away from Crawford. He had a great game plan. He was moving, he's punching, throwing combinations, throwing flurries. So I think it was, like I said, it was two different stories. Crawford trained extremely hard for that fight, and I don't think Canelo trained hard for that fight.
You know, it's an interesting thing when I talk to a lot of reporters in Mexico, and they believe, and I don't know, maybe you would know better if there's something to it, that if you weren't Mexican, the Canelo fight might have happened. That it's one thing for him to lose to someone like Bivol. He's still a star in Mexico. He loses to the Mexican monster. There's a new star in Mexico.
I don't know. I don't really pay attention to that type of stuff. I think he just doesn't like me as a person. I don't think he doesn't like that I've been calling him out. I don't think that, you know, everybody he fights shows him respect and this and that, but man, fuck that, you know. We're fighters at the end of the day. I was respectful for him for a long, long time, and then they kept calling me out, talking shit about me, saying I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not dedicated, I'm a drug addict, this and that. And then that's when I started, you know, defending myself, saying, all right, if I'm all this, come fucking shut me up. Come show me that I'm nothing. You know, and at the end of the day, they can't say that, oh, well, I'm not going to give David Benavidez a chance because he doesn't deserve the money. Bro, at the end of the day, the whole boxing world is calling for that fight. Everybody wants to see that fight. It makes sense on every aspect of the game. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I don't know what his problem is with me. You know what I mean? I think he knows what would happen to him if he gets in the ring with me. You know, I'm not coming to play. You know, I'm not these other guys that come to play. And I take that stuff serious. So I don't think he just doesn't like me. I don't know if he doesn't want me to, you know, have the people of Mexico behind me. I don't know what it is. You know what I mean? But he knows for a fact what would happen to him if he gets in the ring with me.
I'm sure a lot of people know what would happen after they saw the Crawford fight. Because, I mean, it'd be hard to look at that fight and then even after that, to match the two of you guys together and think that it'd be a competitive
But also
fight.
the thing that happened with that, he dropped the ball on that because he would have fought a weaker Benavidez at 160, 168.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was only going to make that sacrifice to fight there because I was already, you know what I mean? I had the option to either come up to 75 or stick around for one more fight at 168, and that fight was going to be him. But in my opinion, things happen for a reason, and I feel like I still would have won at 168, but at 175 I could really shine. You know, and I know for a fact Canelo would not, in the ring, he could not compete with me at 175.
And Anthony, I was going to ask you, I don't know if you had a chance to catch it last week, some of you been hard in camp. Did you get a chance to watch any of the Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. fight?
No, because at the time it happened, I was here.
Yeah.
When it happened, but I saw the highlights after. I'm not even a highlight person. I like to watch the full fight, but
Yeah.
I know both guys. I'm happy they both got one apiece. You know, they both left the ring happy and healthy. So yeah, I'll chat to them when I get back.
Do you think, it's been a lot of controversy in the UK. He felt that Chris kind of put himself in risk with the weight restrictions and the rehydration clause. And, being there ringside looking it straight up, he did look like a guy who was drained from the first round on, like there was just nothing there.
Yeah, from what I saw as well, and it's almost like he knew the outcome before he got in there because of how he felt. He knew that he wasn't gonna have a war like he did the first fight, and I feel like all the pressure was the first fight. You know, he didn't want to lose that first fight. Second fight was just like all right, we'll give you one more. Literally, I think that's what it was like. He made weight this time, but them little, inches is probably what took it out of him.
Well, he had said, after the fight was over that, like you just noted, he said from the very first round he knew that he wasn't going to win. He said he felt it as soon as he got in the ring and they started trading, he wasn't winning the fight.
Exactly. And the first fight he was trading, he was in there. He refused to take off the last few pounds because it was too much. This time he made the weight, but they say that as soon as you get in there with somebody, depending how you feel, your steps, how everything's going, how the other person's fighting, you start to know. But yeah, I'm just glad that they got it done. It's dusted. They're both healthy. That's what I'm most happy with.
And putting your matchmaking hat on for a minute, Conor's obviously not a middleweight. He's going to head down either to 54 or 47. He's already calling out guys like Ryan Garcia, Virgil Ortiz. What do you see as the best fight for him?
There's a lot of options for Conor Benn. I know he was going back and forth with Shakur Stevens. Yeah. He's called at Haney. He's called at Virgil. I think for him, there's not really any easy fights, but a fight that would be good for him will be a fight where the guy's a bit smaller, not so big. I heard he was going to fight Barrios.
Barrios is now fighting Ryan Garcia in February.
So again, he's not going to fight Ryan Garcia. So I feel like he's in a good position because there's a lot of options for him. And he, drawing over 60,000 back-to-back in fights, he's probably become a bona fide superstar. He brings the money to the table. Yes, but again, he also needed that dancing partner. There was a lot of history behind that fight.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that the dancing partner was Chris Eubank.
Yeah.
And that's why that fight was so big. It was both sides. So if he is gonna fight somebody, if I had a matchmaker's head on, it would be someone with a big name.
There's always a big pound-for-pound debate. And the three guys that they always fancy about as the pound-for-pound face of the sport is either Oleksandr Usyk, Naoya Inoue, or Terence Crawford. Which guy does it for you?
Right now it's Crawford, 100%. 100%. He beat Canelo in spectacular fashion. And again, that fight was massive. I feel like Inoue in boxing, superstar. If I ask my friends who Inoue is, they wouldn't know. But a lot of people now know who Terence Crawford is. Canelo, superstar. That's why, again, I wanted him to get that fight. Again, as a boxing fan, Canelo was the biggest draw. So Crawford, he still is the biggest draw. Everyone still knows his name, knows who he is. If he fights again and he fights a big name, people are still going to watch. But yeah, Crawford takes it for me.
And I'll throw the same question to you, David, because you're a guy that's in the pound-for-pound discussion. Out of those three guys, who does it for you?
In my opinion, this is personal preference. I'm such a huge fan of Usyk. I just love I love what he represents in and outside the ring. I think he's number one. But it's up for debate, either Crawford or Usyk, you know.
Yeah.
But I think Usyk, Crawford, and then Inoue.
You as a fan of the sport and someone who's in the sport, what is it about Usyk that stands out for you among the three, who are all three exceptional fighters, obviously?
I think Usyk, the thing about him is that he'll find a way to win, but he won't only just find a way to win. If he can knock you out, he'll knock you out. And he fights big guys. You know, since he was at cruiserweight, and then when he went up to heavyweight, he weighed like about 220. Everybody else weighed like 270, 280. And then he'd go in there and have these great performances, you know what I mean? And, you know, he's a very nice guy outside the ring. You know, I met him a couple times. He's a nice guy, you know, and then he's nice to everybody. He's really friendly, very nice guy. But once he gets in the ring, it's just changes into a different type of animal. And I like that because, you know, I could kind of compare myself to that, you know what I mean? And that's kind of like, I look at him as like motivation. Like, you know, that's what I want out of my career and my life when I get to his age, you know. So I like him a lot. But also Crawford, man. Crawford is a great fighter. You know, Crawford, he represents everything I like too, you know what I mean? He's a great power puncher, great boxer, great defense. So it's just like my personal preference, you know, I have Usyk as number one, but also, you know, Crawford number two.
When he first went up to heavyweight, I remember I had a little bit of doubt in my head because he had a really tough fight with Derek Chisora. And I said, wow, you know, I wonder if this guy could hang with the bigger guys, the Joshuas, the Furies. Did you have any questions early on when you saw him, like, you know, getting pushed around a little bit?
I had the same questions as you. I'm like, man, Joshua is a beast. I mean, I've always had that. I've always known that Joshua's a beast. He's always been the man at heavyweight. So ever since he knocked out Klitschko, you know what I mean? Klitschko is one of the greatest heavyweight champions of all time. So when I seen Usyk coming up, I'm like, oh, I don't think he probably might not win that fight. And then he put on a masterpiece. From round 1 to round 12, he put a masterpiece on. And then he did it again in the rematch. You know what I mean? So I already had respect for Usyk, but then after he did that, I have the respect even went higher. And then he had those two great fights against Tyson Fury. Did the same thing. 2 fights against Dubois. Did the same thing. You know what I mean? So Usyk has tremendous heart, and I think he doesn't. There's some fighters that lead with their brain, and some fighters that lead with their heart. And Usyk is definitely, he uses his heart, you know, to go in there, and he feels that he can knock you out. He doesn't play safe. He'll go and try to look for the knockout.
And Anthony, the new kid on the block, UK, Fabio Wardley, got a world title around his waist, and he's calling out for Usyk. Do you think Wardley, similar to you, not much of an amateur career,
Amazing career.
and comes in there with, might have even had less of an amateur career than you?
Yeah, I think he had unlicensed fights.
Yeah.
Yeah. He just get in there, start scrapping.
And it's like unbelievable. Just stops Joseph Parker in a tear-up fight, and now has a world title around his waist. And where does he go from here? I mean, it's like every time they doubt this guy, sort of like you, he's now at the top.
Yes, and I'm happy for him, man. He deserves it. Because, again, he's one of them people, it's like, he can just scrap, you know. He literally turned the whole system thing on his head. You know, they say, oh, you need all this experience, you need to go Olympics, you need to do this, you need to do that. He came in and said, forget all that, I can fight. You know, so he's fought some very good people. He's had great performances as well. And, yeah, man, he shocked the world. He shocked the world. Usyk, for me personally, it's just my opinion, I think it's a little bit too early for him. You know, Usyk for me, he's getting older, maybe a couple more years. If Woody has, 2 fights, just ease up a little bit and then try and get him at the right time. But for me, same as David said, he's a generational great. In my opinion, the most decorated professional there's been in however many years. You know, he's completed boxing. He's literally completed boxing, Olympics, amateur, all these European titles. turns professional, cruiserweight, dominates. Was he undisputed or was he just unified
Talk about
at cruiserweight?
Usyk?
Yeah,
I think
Yeah, he was
He was
undisputed.
undisputed, and then he went heavyweight, undisputed again. Had a fight with somebody, wasn't good enough, beat them twice. He came to England to do it. Similar to Ali, I would say Muhammad Ali was the definition of a world champion. He fought all around the world. It wasn't just like in his backyard fighting different people. He travelled all over the world and beat people. Usyk, he reminds me, he's a throwback fighter. He's that kind of fighter. Going to different countries, came to UK, beat AJ twice. Done the same thing with Dubois twice. Like he's an elite fighter.
So for Wardley, would you prefer to see him maybe with a Hrgovic or someone
Yes.
of that cloth?
Yes, absolutely. And someone like Wardley, it's like he's put himself in a position where, you know, he deserves it. You know, let him have his belt. No fight's easy in boxing.
Yeah.
Especially at a good level. But let him build. You know, I feel like if he does fight Usyk, in my opinion, Usyk will beat him. And then it's like he's back in that little floating space. But if he gets a couple wins, keeps building his name, you know, he can potentially be a star.
You know, it's a good fight for him that I would want to see, and then the winner gets Usyk. I don't know his last name, but Moses.
Moses
Ooh.
Itauma.
See, now to me, that's dangerous.
That guy's still, bro. That I should say kid, because he 21.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I see a lot of talent in him. He's probably honestly one of my favorite boxers in heavyweight coming up right now. I see he's really good. I would love to see him fight the guy that just beat Joseph Parker.
Fabio Wardley.
I think it's too early for him to fight Usyk right now, but fight him, build a couple fights up, and then, you know, fight Usyk in the future. But out of all the talents that I've been excited for in heavyweight, that's one of them, man. He does everything right. He reminds me like of a Roy Jones mixed with like a Floyd Mayweather. You know, he has so much skills and weapons, and every time I see him fight, you know, I get really excited because he's a great fighter. So I feel like him against anybody, against Wardley, would be a great fight, only because that would be a great test for him. And then let the man, whoever wins, be reigning world champion after.
It seems like to me, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't see, like you said with Crawford, that any of these fights that are left out there, there's enough money for Usyk to take them.
I think Usyk is also, too, he's like you say, Anthony Yarde says, he's a completed fighter. He's done everything. What else is there left for him to do? You know what I mean? So I don't know. I mean, like you said, there's probably not enough money to take these fighters. They probably can't offer him enough money to get these fighters because those are dangerous fights as well. But they did their job, and whatever price they name, they can name whatever price because they've done everything. You know what I mean? So, but I don't know. I feel like Usyk is a little bit different type of fighter. I feel like he does it just from the love of the sport, and he just loves, showing that he's a great champion. So maybe we'll get those fights in the future. But, I mean, Usyk, he's a completed fighter, so we'll see what he does next with his career because he's still boxing. He didn't say he's going to retire anytime soon, right?
No, he hasn't, but his team members, those close to him, they've openly said, if it was up to them, they would want to see him walk away right now. They're like, why take another chance if you don't have to?
Yeah. But also, it looks like he has a lot of fight left in him. So.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. But
I know, Anthony, on your side of the pond, got rumblings once again of a potential Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua showdown in 26. Is it one of those fights similar to when Amir Khan and Kell Brook finally hooked it up where it's just going to capture the imagination once it happens?
Bigger. I feel like that would be one of the biggest fights. Even though they're both, taking losses and whatever's happened, it's still arguably the biggest fight to make in boxing. Which is crazy, but it will get so much global attention. It will break the UK. And I think that's the fight to make for both of them. It would just make so much sense, like financially. And I kind of feel like Turkey Al Sheikh was trying to keep it under wraps. But I feel like in what he said the other day, I think I saw a little clip. I feel like he announced it because he mentioned AJ. He said there's one of the biggest fights that's going to happen ever in history. So I feel like it's inevitable, and that's the only fight I can think of that involves AJ, that's, you know, going to be the biggest thing.
Easy Wembley sellout?
Easy. I think that will sell out any stadium.
And I'm going to wrap it at this point. We all got a press conference to go to. This has been the Mr. Verzace podcast. I want to thank David and Anthony for joining me today. And until next time, stay sharp.